The Selfish Giant by Oscar Wilde in B1 Level English.
Every afternoon when they finished school, the children used to go play in a big garden. It was a lovely garden with soft green grass. Here and there on the grass there were beautiful flowers like stars. There were 12 peach trees, which in the spring had pretty pink and pearl blossoms. In the autumn, they gave tasty fruit. Birds sat on the trees and sang sweetly, and the children would stop their games to listen. "We're so happy here," they said to each other. One day the giant returned. He had been visiting his friend the Cornish ogre for 7 years. After the 7 years, he had said everything he had to say because he wasn't very talkative. He decided to go back to his own castle. When he got back, he saw the children playing in the garden. "What are you doing here?" he asked in a rough voice, and the children ran away. "This is my garden," said the giant, "and only I can play in it." So he built a high wall around it and put up a sign that said, "No trespassing." He was a very selfish giant. Now the poor children had nowhere to play. They tried to play on the road, but it was dusty and had hard stones, and they didn't like it. They would walk around the high wall after school and talk about the beautiful garden inside. "We were so happy there," they said to each other. Then spring came, but in the giant's garden it was still winter. The birds didn't want to sing and the trees didn't blossom. Once, a beautiful flower popped up, but when it saw the sign, it felt sorry for the children and went back into the ground to sleep. Only Snow and Frost were happy. They decided to stay in the garden all year. Snow covered the grass with a white blanket, and Frost painted the trees silver. Then they invited the North Wind, who came and blew hard all day, knocking down chimney pots. "This is a nice place," he said. "Let's invite Hail." So Hail came and made a lot of noise on the roof, breaking the roof tiles, and then ran around the garden. "I don't understand why spring is late," said the giant as he looked out at his cold white garden. "I hope the weather changes soon." But spring and summer never came. Autumn brought fruit to every other garden, but not to the giant's. "He's too selfish," said Autumn. So it was always winter there, with the north wind, hail, frost, and snow dancing around. One morning the giant heard some lovely music. It was just a little bird singing outside his window, but it sounded beautiful to him because it had been so long since he heard a bird in his garden. Hail stopped, the north wind calmed down, and a nice smell came in through the window. "Maybe spring is finally here," thought the giant. He looked out and saw something wonderful. The children had crept into the garden through a hole in the wall and were sitting in the trees. Every tree had a child in it, and the trees were so happy to have them back that they blossomed. The birds sang, and the flowers laughed. It was a lovely sight, except for in one corner of the garden where it was still winter. A little boy stood there, crying. He was too small to reach the branches. The poor tree was still covered in frost, and the north wind blew above it. "Climb up, little boy," said the tree, bending its branches down. But the boy was too small. The giant's heart melted as he watched. "I've been selfish," he said. "That's why spring didn't come." He decided to put the boy on top of the tree and knock down the wall so the garden could be the children's playground forever. He was really very sorry for what he had done, so he went downstairs quietly, opened the door, and went into the garden. But when the children saw him, they got scared and ran away, and the garden turned winter again. The little boy didn't run because he was crying. The giant picked him up and put him in the tree. The tree blossomed, birds sang, and the boy hugged the giant and kissed him. The other children saw the giant wasn't mean anymore and came back, bringing spring with them. "It's your garden now," said the giant, knocking down the wall. At noon, People going to market saw the giant playing with the children in the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. They played all day, and in the evening they said goodbye to the giant. "Where's your little friend?" asked the giant, the boy he had put in the tree. "We don't know," said the children. "He's gone." The giant felt sad. Every afternoon the children came to play with the giant, but the boy he loved was never seen again. The giant was kind to all the children, but missed his little friend. "I wish I could see him again," he said. Years passed and the giant grew old and weak. He couldn't play anymore, so he watched the children play in his garden. "I have many beautiful flowers," he said, "but the children are the most beautiful flowers of all." One winter morning he looked out the window and saw a marvelous sight. In the far corner of the garden, a tree was covered in white blossoms, with golden branches and silver fruit. Underneath stood the little boy he loved. The giant ran downstairs in joy and went to the child. But when he got close, he saw something on the child's hands and feet, marks like nails. "Who did this to you?" asked the giant angrily. "Who was it? I will take my big sword and kill him." "No," said the child. "These are the marks of love." "Who are you?" asked the giant, feeling strange, and he knelt before the child in wonder. The child smiled and said, "You let me play in your garden once. Today, come with me to my garden, which is paradise." And when the children came to the garden that afternoon, they found the giant lying dead under the tree, all covered in white blossoms.